assured, this act by the FBI, by Merrick Garland, the DOJ, and the White House that had to approve all of it is a declaration of war against peaceful American citizens. 74 million of them. This is not America. Stay strong, my friends. God bless.
Crazy Sebastian Gorka there telling the MAGA base that this is war, which tells you that whatever the FBI found is bad. It's exactly what they were looking for. The idea that they are so incensed tells you that what is in those boxes is really serious. It's really dangerous. Whatever's in those boxes was a national security threat. Whatever was in those boxes made the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the FBI respond with a counterintelligence export control group of agents to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, this is amazing. All right, so let's just go through some of the history of how people around Donald Trump, people in the administration, monetized their experience in the White House. So we all remember that Jared couldn't get a security clearance, right? That all the intelligence agencies advised not to grant him a security clearance. Donald Trump overrode the national security apparatus in this country, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, all the people that would weigh in on such a thing. He overruled them and gave Jared a security clearance, a super top secret, so that Jared could then read the presidential daily brief, which, if you flash back to like W days, right, we know what some of those daily briefings had in them. Like one of them was called Osama bin Laden determined to strike within the United States. Remember that one? That's the kind of intel that the president of the United States, and only the president of the United States, gets. And of course, anybody who is allowed to read the presidential daily brief. That would be one Jared Kushner, who then was cleared to get that daily briefing. And, you know, I hope you remember this. In one of the daily briefs, or in some of the daily briefs, let's just say, because we don't know how many, we don't know if it was just the one or if it was a series of daily briefs, there were objections to the Saudi Arabian ascension of Prince bin Salman after the king had died, okay? The king of Saudi Arabia died, and there had to be a successor. And some people in Saudi Arabia wanted it to be Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And other people like Prince Talaweed and another group of Saudis didn't want it to be Salman because they thought that he was violent. They thought that he was crazy. Remember? And so in the presidential daily brief, there was a list of Saudi members of the Saudi royal family and Saudi billionaires who were opposed to bin Salman becoming the king of Saudi Arabia. Jared saw that list. Jared had access to that list. And then do you remember that Jared went to Saudi Arabia and had like a little sleepover with bin Salman? And, you know, they just became best pals because they were both in their 30s. They were both young. They were both trying to inherit a great fortune. Remember? And Jared went over there and hung out with him. They had their slumber party. They became best pals. And the rumor was that Jared had given the list of the people who were opposed to bin Salman elevating himself to king, and that bin Salman then in turn did something. Do you remember what he did? All of a sudden in Saudi Arabia, there was this great kidnapping of royal family members, cousins, people who were against his, ascension, billionaires, some oligarchs in Saudi Arabia, and they were all kidnapped. And they were put inside, because, you know, they're Saudi rich kids, they were put inside of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Saudi Arabia. The rumor was that some of them were starved, some of them were tortured, some of them were slapped around, one of them died, and that this was to coerce them into signing away their fortunes and giving their fortunes to bin Salman. And after this show of force by bin Salman, of course, he became king of Saudi Arabia at the tender age of like 36 years old. And he is now who we have to deal with in Saudi Arabia to this day. But 6 months after Jared leaves the White House, 6 months after Jared leaves the White House, the prince, who's now the king, suddenly decides that he's going to invest $2 billion into Jared's brand new private equity fund. Now, what's interesting about Jared's brand new private equity fund that he set up 6 months after he leaves the White House is Jared has never had any experience at all in private equity. He even has like this middling reputation as a real estate dude because remember, he needed this money because the real estate fortune that his daddy bequeathed him, okay, the 666 Fifth Avenue building, was so in debt, it was so over leveraged, they had barred against it so hard that the loans were coming due and Jared owed about $1 billion. Now all of a sudden as a, hey, we really want to invest with you, sort of a thank you, Salman deposits $2 billion into this Jared Kushner private equity fund. So you can see that people who were serving the United States and took an oath to protect and defend us against all enemies, foreign and domestic, weren't too interested in doing that. They were much more interested in making money by getting intelligence briefings that could be valuable to our, I won't call Saudi Arabia the enemy or an enemy, but they're certainly not a democracy. They're certainly not a Western nation. They're certainly not a country that practices human rights. You know, they are certainly a country that will go get a Washington Post, columnist and, take a bone saw to him and then, send an autopsy team to go get the body. And Jared, has just written a book. And in Jared's book, he mentions this part of the Saudi, bin Salman reign. And he says he wasn't going to let, a murder get in the way of doing the right thing. I mean, that's what's in his book. Not that anybody's going to ever read that book because, who the hell, wants to read anything about Jared? But that is an excerpt that was made public for some poor bastard who had to read Jared's book and excerpt it. But you have to ask yourself, what kind of intelligence makes its way to the White House and specifically to the president? And why is the export control team dispatched to go get it? Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.